Coach, how would you assess what Alex Delton was able to show you today and the consistency with which he was able to engineer the offense?
I don't think your microphone works. I think it was about Alex and how well he played. That was basically it. Nobody did anything that surprised me. I mean, Alex, has practiced well. He's played well in previous ball games. There wasn't anything that he did that was out of character, from a positive or negative point, with him. I thought he played well. I thought that's what we expect, of him. Certainly had a couple of, issues, but, by and large played well and wasn't a surprise.
The guy who caught my eye was Sebastian Taylor. Can you talk about how he's been able to progress?
Well, it's been up and down, kind of a roller coaster with him. I think, and we had talked about him. That's when I alluded to him being somebody else at one time. But, he's a young guy. I mean, it's a new process for him, a new system for him. The important thing for him is to, you can see he's got some skill. He can physically, he can play the game. He's just got to learn to get into the system and get into the process and has to learn how much of an investment it really takes in order to prepare yourself to do these things. But he's made some headway, and granted, he played well today. I think his practices in this past week were improved over previous practices. So hopefully that's a sign of the future. So much of it's going to depend once again about his investment during the course of the summer.
Coach, what did you think of the #1 defense today?
Well, it's just, porous at times, good and bad for the most part. And again, it's not about the offense, not about the defense as much as it is, the individuals, because the offense is watered down, the defense is watered down considerably, and so there's a lot of restrictions placed on what, on what they do, what they don't do. So I wouldn't put anything in regards to. Again, it's about individuals more than anything else. And I thought, some of them again stepped up and played like I had hoped that they would, and we got, because there's so many guys injured. I think we have 8 starters out. I say injured guys that at least did not participate in the ball game, and that always could make it different from a collective standpoint. But that's again not what we're looking at.
Alex Barnes kind of seemed to be back, I want to say, in a normal form. I'm sure some of it is him being healthy right now, but did it seem to you throughout spring here that he kind of maybe took a step forward to getting back to where he was more as a freshman than his sophomore season?
Well, I think, there you go again. I mean, you're making the assessment of how good he was as a freshman as opposed to how good he was as a sophomore, and your assessment's wrong. He's he's a good young guy. He's played well for us, and since he's been here, he didn't do. I thought he played well today. Made some individual plays, but it's not anything that we haven't seen before, and it's not anything that we don't expect from him.
Coach, kind of a random question. I'm just curious, what goes into the decision to go ones versus ones as opposed to how it's been the last few years?
Well, it's not that we haven't done it before. We have, but it's you just kind of look at the matchups, and because we had a number of guys that were going to be out, how we were going to match up, and we just don't want people running over people, so to speak, and depth was an issue, so that was a big part of it.
You had mentioned that receiver depth was a concern, at least for you at some point this spring. Now that it's over with, do you feel better or worse about that particular area?
Neither. Feel about the same.
Did you like any of the other guys out there besides Taylor, who we talked about at receiver today?
Oh, I thought Landry made a few plays. I think some of the guys that maybe that are in the upper echelon of that maybe didn't make any special plays that you'd kind of like to see. I don't think there were really any special plays in the course of the ball game. Alex, made a few, I think, but outside of that, not much. So no, nobody stepped up and surprised me. There wasn't anybody that disappointed me either. So it was about what we expected, I guess.
Coach, do you feel like Alex Delton has continued to show greater poise in the pocket and has shown growth in that area?
I'm hoping that he's made growth in virtually every area, and I think he has. I think he's gotten a little bit better, as most of our guys have during the course of the spring. You allude to how he acts, reacts in the pocket. I don't think I've had any major concerns about that. He brought the ball out in what most people would call scrambles or flushes. But as I've said to you numerous times, that is the yards per carry. That has been over a large number of years the best football play we have had. So I don't, when a guy's scrambling back there, that doesn't mean I'm disappointed in him or upset with him. Now, if you take a loss, which I think Skyler did on one snap and Ast did on another one, we had 2 sacks in the ball game, if I recall correctly, and that gets me more concerned because that's the time you got to get rid of the ball and make sure we don't take those major lost yardage plays.
Coach, do you feel like Skyler's performance was pretty on par with Alex at quarterback?
I thought that I have to watch the film and study it in detail. The statistics don't necessarily mean a great deal in a ball game like this, anyway. But I thought just at first glance, I think both of them played reasonably well. Going into the ball game, I mean, we traded them back and forth. In all honesty, I mean, who started the ball game for us? We flipped a coin. Coach Klein and 2 quarterbacks got together and flipped a coin to decide who was going to be the first guy to take reps with the ones. And I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Skyler, I believe. But nevertheless, which just is an indication that that's how close they have been throughout the course of our spring practices. Yeah.
What did you think today about the play of the special teams just as a whole?
Well, again, you can't. I can't assess our ones or our twos collectively as a whole because we've got a lot of people that are sitting over there watching or standing watching that wouldn't normally be there, that would be on the field. So that has some impact on regard on how they do collectively as a unit. And as I've said so many times, because things are watered down so much that it's not about the one offense or the 2 offense or the 1 defense or the 2 defense. It's strictly about individuals and how they perform in the course of a ball game, and that's exactly the way we judge it. It's the way I judge it or assess it.
Coach, I know I'm asking you to look ahead here, but when it does come time to decide between Alex and Skyler for starting that first game in September, is there any one thing you'll look on or look for during summer workouts and summer practices that'll help you influence that decision?
Well, I think, the big thing is going to be that we're, hopefully mistake-proof. From a security standpoint, that they're doing what they need to do to make sure that we have good possession of the ball or keep possession of the ball. But by and large, it's basically because their skill sets are very similar, and B, both of them do a pretty decent job with both facets of the game. But as I've always said in here, it will be about game management, you know, and how well they can get us in, get us out of the right things and wrong things, and manage the ball game and be turnover free. And that'll be a major criteria for, you know, the evaluation.
Hey, Bill, in terms of now the spring's almost over, how does this spring compare, I guess, to previous ones? I mean, has it been just a normal spring? Has there been anything abnormal about it? I mean, how do you go about gauging that? And just any perspective you can provide.
Well, you know, just in regards to the process, nothing was truly any different. You know, as I haven't thought about it necessarily because I'm not interested in previous springs, but I don't think there's anything that's you know, of any, you know, different. You know, I think, you know, some players respond a little bit differently. You know, certain things that, you know, that they do that maybe weren't prevalent for them in previous springs, you know, because so many of them, or a lot of them, have been through spring practice before. So I can't think that anything was majorly different. Yeah, nothing I can think of.
At fullback, it seemed like today, like Adam Harder and then Luke Sywell both had pretty solid games. Do you feel better about that position now than maybe you did at the beginning of the spring, considering who you're trying to replace?
Well, I think we still have work. I was impressed. I thought Harder, you know, he got more opportunities and got a chance to get his hands on the ball, and you know, when he did just fine. So I was he kind of caught my eye, you know, a little bit. But you know, we've got growth yet ahead of us at that position, and so we're not. Yeah, I'm not, you know, satisfied that this solved the problem yet. Still have work.
Coach, we focus a lot on players of spring football, but you have two new coordinators who have never had that job before. How important has this spring been for Andre and Blake to kind of settle into their new roles?
Well, you know, again, I think it has been because, you know, if you have new staff members, it's kind of like, you know, I say with, you know, with players, that it's the dynamics changes year in and year out regardless, and even more so with you know, with the coaching staff. And I've been pleased with, as I've said before, pleased with the dynamics of the coaching staff on both sides of the ball, and all three sides of the ball, and how they have been able to interact with each other. Not just getting along. I mean, I know that's going to take place, but you know, it's just being able to, you know, engage in the communication process that is so significant and important, and get invested collectively together. I think that has been prominent during the course of the spring. I'm pleased about that. Spring game today, you know, was significant for the coaches as every bit as much as it was for the players. You know, and because you've got you know, three coaches that really haven't been with us at any time, you know, before. As it relates to not just the sideline environment, but because a couple of them have, but in terms of the communication that takes place, you know, headsets, press box to sideline, and vice versa. So that was significant today, very much so.
He had that 45-yard long touchdown catch. Has he shown flashes of being able to make this big play capacity?
Flashes might be the appropriate word, right? You know, occasional flash, I put it that way. But he's growing. You know, he's you know, and obviously he's a good target. He's got good height to him, and you know, he's a reasonably physical young man in that respect. Runs reasonably well. So, I mean, he has the capacity, I would guess, physical capacity of it, and that's not to negate anything mentally. It's just, once again, with him, it's getting a complete understanding of the process and what it really takes to be, you know, the quality of player that I'm sure he desires to be. Yeah. Okay, thank you all.